funny Indian. I was born in Scotland. My dad was a soldier in the Second World War, and he met my mother over there, and 3 of us were born over there and came to Canada and lived in McDermott. So it might or might not fit into what you expected. Okay, so you want to be a tradesperson, and I was looking at people that wanted to get into the trades. And now, all about me, okay, so in the trades, I have 4 trades, really. I'm a journeyman plumber, a second-class stationary engineer, a marine engineering technician, a mechanical systems technician, water treatment, class 2, water distribution, class 2, wastewater treatment, class 1, wastewater collection, and I'm a certified engineering technician. So I really have been through the mill, and I've gone through all the trades in different methods. Okay. I just want to talk a little bit about the traditional apprenticeships. Did any of you guys go to the apprenticeship presentations this morning? Yeah? Okay. The traditional apprenticeships, they're administered by the Ministry of Training Colleges and Universities, and the trades are divided into 2 categories as follows. The regulated trades, okay, you must be certified to work in that trade. There are 22 trades in this category: auto mechanics, hairstylist, plumber, electrician, and I think cook should be in on this one, because most of these things have to do with safety and people. Okay, for instance, a hairstylist is adding chemicals to your hair. Okay, so they better know what the heck they're doing. Okay. You dyed your hair that color just to make me feel younger, right?
No, my friend up north gave me some polar bear grease. He said it was good for you. And it was black, and I used to use bear grease, and I got polar bear grease, and it turned white like a polar bear.
Okay, some of those trades also is the electrician. Now, most of, like the electrician, the plumber, and the rest of them, they're normally 5-year apprenticeships, okay? And they're normally one-on-one. In other words, I'm a journeyman plumber. I can take on one apprentice, and him and I are stuck like glue for the next 5 years. And I train him, okay? So there's no such thing as saying, okay, let's have a class full of plumbers and run a course, and everybody comes out a plumber. It don't work that way. Most trades are 85% hands-on skills you learn by teaching with your hands, and 15% theory. And that 15% theory is what they examine you on. Okay? Come in, come in. Okay, now there's another set of trades that are called non-regulated, and they do not require certification to work in the trade. And some examples of that would be the person who looks after the maintenance in this building is, I think they're called facility mechanics. Now, what happened there, the industry, the hotel industry said, well, we've got mechanics who look after the building, and we'd like to get them certified. So they go to the apprenticeship board, they make up a set of standards, and this guy becomes a tradesman known as a facilities mechanic. Now, he has to go to school for a certain amount of time. It's a voluntary trade. He doesn't have to get certification. If the hotel wants to hire a guy who they figure can do the job, they'll hire him, okay? So that's the difference between the compulsory trades and or they call them regulated, non-regulated. They've got about 10 different names for them, but for the non-regulated trades and the regulated trades. So the non-regulated trades are voluntary. And there's some examples there. Child and youth worker. Okay, it's the trade. It can have an apprentice, and it can also be a voluntary trade. Okay, I've got cook, baker, appliance service worker. Okay, how do I get into an apprenticeship? Most trades require grade 12 standing. Some, such as plumber, require grade 10. However, the employer may insist that you have grade 12. Now, this is to become an apprentice. Now, I'm going to make a statement right now. There is no education requirement for any trade. Okay? I'll touch on that next. But you must have grade 12 in most trades to become an apprentice. Okay, in the plumber's case, it's grade 10, and same with an electrician that does residential work, it's grade 10. But an electrician who does motor controls in an industrial setting must be grade 12. But generally speaking, most of them say grade 12. Okay, now, when we talk about these apprenticeships, there's two things that are really barriers to First Nations people. One, grade 12. Now, I worked for Assembly of First Nations a few years back, and we did a survey of all First Nations in the North, the remotes. The average grade is 9. So you can see that trying to get a person into a trade is going to be rather difficult. The other part is a journeyman, someone to take you on as an apprentice. Very, very difficult. And take you on for 5 years. It's just like getting married. Okay, and I got a picture of a cook there. This cook happens to be on a submarine. I don't have lots of pictures of me because I didn't have many pictures to do this presentation. And what is that thing coming up?
It's just a pop-up. We'll get rid of it.
Don't scare me like that. Okay, and carpenters, I got a couple of happy carpenters there. Okay, now, so we're looking at a trade, and I made a statement before, you don't need any education to become a plumber, electrician, or anything. But you must be able to pass their exams, okay? So they have another way of getting into a trade. Say you worked, and I put down here as a carpenter for 5 years, you'll have 10,000 hours working in that trade. I just done an estimate here. And you should be qualified to write the exam. Okay, again, so there you are, you've got grade 9, you've been working in the trade as a carpenter, and this happens all the time. And you want to challenge the exam. Okay, you may challenge the exam if you kept the record of these hours of the work, and these hours are confirmed by the employer or journey person. The Ministry of Training colleges and universities have forms which you must complete and submit for their assessment. And I see that a lot of times guys on First Nations have been working in the band building homes for 10, 15, 20 years. And they decide they want to become a carpenter. So they go to the Ministry of and fill out the appropriate forms, take it back. The band office signs it off. Okay, they worked 4 months last year, whatever. Now, the bad part about that is sometimes the ministry say, no, it's not good enough. We want an accurate accounting of your hours. 20 years ago, they would accept it. Now they want you to have an accurate accounting of these hours, okay? So, what I would suggest, if you're working, you don't know where you're going to be working next.
As an accurate account, would that mean ROEs and stuff like that? Or?
What's an ROE?
Record of employment.
Yeah, a record of employment, but that tells you that you worked there.
It tells you your hours.
It will tell you the hours, but you have to have someone confirm that that was worked as a carpenter. Okay, because you might have worked for the band office and they'll give you a record of hours that you worked, but they don't give a detailed report.
So with that
needs to state your position.
Yeah. Say worked as a carpenter, carpenter's helper, whatever. So they'll need that, but they now have forms there that I would go and get. And every time you finish the job, make sure that your foreman signed it off, or your band administrator signed it off, that you had 500 hours, and you collect your hours up, okay? So that's how you can get either an apprentice, or you can do this certificate of qualification where you write the exam. Right now in Red Rock, they're doing it for carpenters. I think they have 10. And Schnabik Employment and Training, I think, is supporting that one. They're doing that. They recently done it in the SLAM. They did 22 carpenters. I think only 4 passed the exams. Okay, now the bad news. Registered apprentices receive 24 weeks of in-class training. Okay, 8 weeks for 3 sessions over their 5-year apprenticeship. Okay, you don't have that information, okay? And you must find the appropriate study material to prepare yourself to challenge the exam. So I worked in the water and wastewater field for 10 years, and it's called a plumbing associated trade. And I said, yes, it's mostly industrial plumbing. You can write your plumbing exam. So I phoned Sault Ste. Marie and I said, can I come on the course? And they said, you're not an apprentice. Well, I was 40 years old. You're not an apprentice, you can't come on the course. Well, where do I get information so I know what to study for a plumbing exam? They had no answer for me. I was fortunate, I got hold of the Municipalities Association, and they happened to have an old course, basic, intermediate, advanced, and they sent it to me for $10. So I had study material. It took me a year studying, going through all the stuff and the codes and everything, and I wrote my exam. Now, first off, I got to tell you, I walked in barefooted without any study material, wrote the exam, and I got 68%. After a year of study, I wrote the exam, I got 72%. So there, I jumped 4%, but I passed the exam. Okay, so now that's the same problem, trying to find the appropriate study material to be able to challenge the exam successfully. But there is a way of getting there. Okay. Now, my story. I completed grade 10 in Lakeview High School in 1960, and I wanted to be an auto mechanic. I love cars. I had engines. My poor grandfather had old engines all around the backyard and old cars, and I just loved working on them. And in school, that was a reflection. The teacher right away knew that that's what I wanted. So he gave me a letter, and grade 10 at that time was a half-decent education. Gave me a letter of recommendation, and I went from garage to garage in Port Arthur and Fort William, as you pointed out. We were two cities at that time, looking for an apprenticeship or a journeyman to take me on. Well, there's me in 1960. And there used to be engines all over the place there. Okay, so I went from garage, no luck, and just a comment there, in 1994, I became the apprenticeship coordinator for First Nations working for Gitche-Gaming Area Management Board at the time for Northwestern Ontario. And I found out the situation was still the same. Couldn't find a journeyman. And to this date, the number of native tradespeople are probably under 20. And that's pretty sad in Northwestern Ontario. There's so very few tradespeople, and there's a reason for that. Okay, when I looked at it, it only made sense that the journey person would take on a family member. Now that's known as nepotism. I'm not supposed to say that word. But what happens is the guy owns a garage, little Anishinaabe comes up looking for an apprenticeship. He's looking for an apprentice. He's going to hire his son, his friends, family member. He's not going to hire you, a total stranger. That hasn't changed. It's still the same. If you don't know anybody, you're going to have the most difficult time trying to get in the trade. If you do know somebody, push, 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 because a trade, it's a good thing to get in, it pays well. Okay? Okay, so my grandfather suggested I could become a mechanic if I joined the Navy. It was a drastic decision. Would have suited me fine because I did want to become a sailor. And in 1961, I joined the Royal Canadian Navy and became a marine engineering technician. And I served on both surface ships and submarines. There's me. Isn't that a beautiful ship back there? And that's me in the engine room of a submarine. I'm the little guy in the corner there. All smiles. Just come back from South America. Okay, now I stayed in the Navy for 10 years. I was a marine engineer, and of that 10 years, I spent 20 months in school. Went to Naval Technical Training School, so I did get a lot of theory. And at the end of 10 years, I decided I was getting out, and the person I was talking to says, why don't you go in the Air Force? Because I was sick and tired of going to sea. And like a fool, I said, okay. So I ended up with the military engineers. And I became a water sanitation and fuel technician. Okay, that's me in a water treatment plant. Okay, now, when I got out of the military, I had, now, what trades? A marine engineering technician, water treatment plant, wastewater treatment plant operator, bulk fuel operator, and swimming pool operator. So I had those 4 trades, but guess what? When I went into UI, they asked me if I had any papers, and I says, yeah, they're military. Yeah, they're no good here. Now, the strangest thing is a diesel engine on a ship and a diesel engine in a little room is still a diesel engine. But everybody builds an empire. So I really had no qualifications when I got out of the military. Okay, so I did say, okay, well, where in the heck do I go from here? I couldn't get an apprenticeship, and at the time, the plumbing thing was out of the question. I just didn't have the time to do it. So I started looking around and said, okay, now, the apprenticeships are controlled so tightly, I can't get into them. And so I started to look at what other trades can I get into, and that's what I tell people. If you can't focus in on these trades that are delivered by the Ministry of Training, universities, colleges and universities, that's a mouthful. Okay, try and look for some other way. Okay, so I looked at, I'm not telling you to join the armed forces, but when I look at it, Canadian Armed Forces has 100 trades. Many of these trades are recognized by the Ministry of Colleges, universities. Service personnel are allowed to challenge the trade exam. So if you are a plumber in the military, the Ministry of will allow you to challenge the exam. They just won't automatically, because for some reason, I guess a toilet on a base is different than a toilet in your house. I don't know. But this is the thinking that goes on is just unbelievable. In the military, these people get really good training, a lot better training that the colleges can deliver even. And they get a lot of training and a lot of opportunities to work on the housing, whatever. Okay. So I explained to you that the trade that I was in was a plumbing-related trade. They said I could write the exam. Now, the Ministry of Environment, so that I went and looked, okay, Ministry of Environment, what trades do they regulate? The water treatment, water distribution, wastewater treatment, water collection, okay? 2 of them are certified trades. So if you wanted to get into there, now if you're from a First Nation and you plan on going back to a First Nation, they always need a water plant operator. The trades are intense in math, and you must have grade 12. There's no question about it. These trades must have grade 12. I got my licenses, but I really had to work at learning math for this particular trade. So the Ministry of Environment has 4 trades. So now they have nothing to do with the Apprenticeship Board. Okay? The Apprenticeship Board looks after the trades that's listed, the ones I mentioned. But hey, wait a minute, there's other people that have trades that is open to us. So the water plant operator, yep, all the water plant operators there, I've been involved with training with them since 1994. In the last 20 years, I've been working on reserves training water plant operators. They get certified by the province of Ontario. Even though it's not necessary on a reserve to follow provincial regulations, INAC has declared it as best practice. So they say if you want to get paid as a water plant operator on a reserve, since Walkerton and since Pistachio and all these different things, yep, you need to be certified in these trades. And that's Desmond Jordan from, where the heck did I run across him? Stanjacone. Water distribution, okay, this is Pays Plat. Okay, so that they have those trades. There's 4 trades that you can get into, and those trades are needed and required on First Nations. Okay? So now I looked at what other trades? Technical Standards and Safety Authority. Who in the heck heard of those guys before? When I go and I talk to the people who control your funds, the LDMs for training and education, this is like I'm talking Chinese to them. Okay. the operating engineers, also known as power engineers, station engineers, boiler operators. Okay, these people also control amusement rides and licensing, elevating devices, the elevator you just came up on. The guy who runs that has to be certified by these people, technical standards. And fuels, when you go up and pump gas, the guy who repairs that machine, looks after and maintains that machine, is licensed through the technical standards and safety. Has nothing to do with the Ministry of Colleges, Training and Universities, whatever they like to call themselves. Okay, now let's just talk about operating engineers, stationary engineers, power engineers. They keep changing their name. And where do these guys work? They're employed in hospital heating plants, pulp mill process, highest paid job. In the mill, a stationary engineer, looks after the boilers, okay? Cogeneration plants. The thermal plant that we have here in Thunder Bay that's burning coal right now, they're talking about going to biomass. Stationary engineers. Forest products processing plants. I worked for Domtar as the chief operating engineer, making steam for the kiln. Okay, the kiln's used to dry the lumber. I worked for Weldwood of Canada for 9 years, strand board and plywood. Boilers. Okay, the boilers make steam. The steam is used in the process. The tar sands. Anybody that wants to leave the country. The tar sands pay well for stationary engineers. They heat up the oil to get the oil in the sands, to get the oil out of it, okay? And plus it's used in the actual process. So right now it's down. But as soon as that starts up again, there'll be a big call for stationary engineers, and they'll leave half the jobs in Thunder Bay. The university has a heating plant. Hotels. Some hotels still use steam, but a lot of them have air conditioning and large refrigeration units. Stationary engineers also look after refrigeration units. The biggest, I can operate the biggest refrigeration unit in Canada with my license, okay? Okay, now this one here, the fourth class, I got out of the service. I sent away for a course. I didn't have a job, I ran out of UI, I pushed in a corner, I ended up commercial fishing with Harold. Now that was an experience, and I had a whole story on that one.
It's an interesting tale to tell.
And I was covered in fish guts, and I had this course. And we'd be up at 5 in the morning lifting nets, and in between lifts, I'd be down there reading and studying that material. It took me 6 months, but I completed the course. The course cost me $60. I got it from SATE, and today, a lot of stationary engineers still get their education through that course. It's supposed to be a correspondence course, but it's not. Okay, but you have to be licensed to operate a boiler. Okay, after 6 months I completed the course, and I just told you who I worked for. Now, my son Frank's story. Now there's another little story for you. My son Frank worked in Winnipeg with the Gondola Pizza chain, and he was the manager. So he come home, I hadn't seen him since he was 16, he was 22 years old, come walking in my house, he was all dressed up like a, I don't know, I don't want to say it. Anyhow, pointy shoes, earrings, who works anyhow. So it was Christmas time, I took him for a tour of the mill, and he told me, I said, how much you get paid there? He said, I'm $7 an hour now. Well, so you can start here at $16 an hour pushing a broom. Bang, he started working in the mill. Unfortunately, around April sometime, he fell asleep and got fired. So he went through the summer. Come Christmas time, he got a loaf of bread from his in-laws. They were Finnish, and it was a big dark loaf of bread. He said, look what they gave us for Christmas. Well, come April, Frank's knocking at my door. I says, what's up? He says, Dad, he says, I'm down to eating this bread and cockadoodle soup. That's all we have left in the cupboard, he said. Can you help me? I went and got that course that I had done, which is still covered with fish guts, and I still have. And I gave it to him. I says, here, self-study, start reading. 3 months later, he comes walking in the boiler room. Now, he's on welfare. Comes walking in the boiler room. I said, what are you doing here? He said, I got a placement. They had a program, Ventures or something, Futures or something through Manpower. And he got placement. Oh, good. 3 months later, he has a certificate the company actually built him a little study board on one of the stanchions, one of the poles. When he was sweeping up, in between he could study. He got a certificate and full-time employment and got his 3rd class. Now Frank went from welfare to the 2nd highest hourly paid guy in the mill, because the stationary engineer, I was the highest paid hourly guy in the mill, and he became the 2nd. A self-study, okay? And I tell people that because you can do it. If you really want to and you know where you're going and what you're doing, where you go, start studying. Now, at that time, you only needed 3 months steam time. If you go through the college, and you have to have grade 12 in the college. Now remember, Frank only had grade, I don't know if I told you that, he only had grade 9. But he did it, and you only needed 3 months steam time. If you do it on yourself now, you take a year steam time. If you go through the college, it's three months. But you have to have grade 12. Again, there's no requirement for any education. All they ask is you pass their exams. Okay, there's me as an operating engineer, and I was the chief engineer at St. Joseph's Hospital. And there's our heating system, and there's how I spent a lot of my time. And that's why I like that trade, because I could get a lot of naps. Okay, so when I look at it, I put down there's 21 trades under this TSSA, and some examples: domestic appliance technician, that's people that look after like large kitchens down here that are fired by natural gas. Gas pipe fitter, every house has got a furnace in it. You have to be licensed to work on your gas in town here. Again, another trade, okay? Oil burner technician, if you're from a First Nation, up north they burn fuel oil. Oil burner technician, if you live on a reserve or going to live on a reserve, a good ticket to have. Okay, the oil pipe fitter and the gas technician. The gas technician, he looks after the compounds. Up north, they have to fly somebody in for maintenance, but you have to be licensed. At one time, the First Nation says we don't need it because it comes under the federal. The provincial government says that's fine. We're not delivering to your fuel, and they didn't. They would not deliver fuel unless there was a licensed technician that put the fuel and maintained the fuel equipment. Okay. Elevating devices, elevators, escalators, construction hoists, again under TSSA. Dumb waiters, freight elevators. Okay, this is a repairman. I live in the apartment that caught fire. You guys hear about the fire that we had there? Okay, this was last week. They were in there still working on the elevators, getting them going. Now, he works for Otis. You've probably heard of that company. They look after elevators, and it's a trade. I asked him what the trade was like. He said it's getting a little more difficult. Before, they just used to ask if you can get a job, go there as a laborer or whatever, and work your way up. He says at one time you just needed the experience. Now, he says they're asking for more education because of the electronics. It's getting a little more complicated with the new elevators. Okay. Okay, Transport Canada, Marine Safety. Again, another trade. What I'm trying to tell you here is there's other places you can get trades. The Coast Guard, if you want to go to sea. Okay, who regulates these trades? In this case, it's Transport Canada Marine Safety. I worked for them for 6 months as an inspector. That was a terrible job. I couldn't climb. Go on those big ships, climb to the top, nearly 70 years old. No thanks. Anyhow. So they issue certificates for you to become a marine, what do they call theirs? Marine engineers. Again, steam, diesels, gas turbines. If you're into that sort of thing and want to go in that direction, you have opportunities with Transport Canada. Okay, now, in addition to those places, there may be companies, Bell, Canada. Maybe they train their own. Tell us. I know they train their own. Okay? If you can find a job, maybe just working as a laborer, then while you're there, you see, oh, there's an opening for, they're looking for these guys. You talk to the manager, say, I'd like to take the training for this, and move your way up. Okay? So, there's no magic to it. It doesn't matter how you go about getting trade. It's up to you to want to get the trade, know what you want, and go after it. I'm just telling you that there's more than one way to skin a cat. And that's what I did. I wanted to be an auto mechanic. I love mechanics, but I did get to work in mechanics all my life, even though it wasn't autos. It's my hobby, but. Okay, so I put down here, it's not easy to get in the trades. It can be done. I'm an example of that. Determine what trade you want to get into. Find some training material and read up on the trade. The unions here, I was just talking to 2 union guys down here, one sheet metal, one millwright. The way they work it, they require some apprentices. They advertise, or word of mouth, that they need 6 apprentices. Okay, you go and you challenge, they give you an aptitude test. Well, if it's a millwright, you know what would be a real good idea is if you found some material on millwrights to find out what they do, and a little bit of their math, what they do, and when you wrote that aptitude test, you jump ahead of somebody that just came in cold. Okay? Same as electrician. Oh, well, let's look, what does an electrician do? Well, let's learn some of the terminology to write the test. You're competing with other people to get to be an apprentice. Okay, network. Use any connection you have. School teacher, friend, anyone who you may think of may help. Don't be shy. And I hate to say racism, but it's there. Okay? You're Native. A lot of employers have had bad experiences with Native people in the past, 30 years ago. And I seen them. I was here. They were the drunks. And they would hire them and take them right off the street. They'd go and work for them first. As soon as they got a check, they're gone, never seen them again. Well, that stereotype is still there. And we still have to deal with it. The lady this morning alluded to a lot of that stuff. Unfortunately, the employers are very cautious. They don't know you, and the only thing that they do know is other people talking and stuff on the radio and TV and all the rest of that stuff. We still have to deal with that. But there's a lot of people who do have open minds. Say, okay, yeah, well, come on, work with me, or they've had good experience with Native people working with them. Okay, are there any questions on this? I know it's going through it really quick. You all going to be tradespeople then?
Definitely.
Yeah, okay, you and I will go together. Okay, so that's all I have to say. Thank you for your attention. I hope you got a little bit out of it. I could talk for hours on this subject, and I just kind of condensed it. Okay? Thank you.